I used to spend 30 or 40 hours per client strategy building them out. I have almost cut that time in half using AI, but I'm going to show you exactly how to use it and the biggest mistakes I see marketers and fractional CMOs make when they are pulling AI process into their strategy builds. I'm going to walk you through the 4 biggest mistakes that I see marketers make when they're using AI. And then I'm going to share with you my 5-step process for building out strategy with AI in a way that still leans on your thought leadership and strategy to drive everything. Okay, so let's talk about the biggest things that people get wrong when they're using AI in strategy builds. Mistake number 1 is starting cold. So you don't want to be opening up a thread or a project and using that with zero context, because if you're not giving your AI a role and a whole bunch of background strategy documents to lean on, or using a project that has project instructions, you are giving it zero context and it's just using the default settings. So your output is not going to be great. Mistake number 2 is asking it to do too many things at one time. So I often see people working on a strategy and asking the AI to be building out positioning and channel strategy and a content plan and funnel tactics all in one prompt. That is how you get something that does not make sense, that's generic, or that is completely not right for the client that you are working on. Mistake number 3 is never showing it what your past work looks like. So similar to point 1, if it doesn't have examples, then you're going to get out whatever it thinks based on the interpretation of your prompt. So if your prompt isn't great, if it's not detailed enough, which often they're not, that's a skill that we're all learning and working on, it has no idea what the strategy document needs to look like, how detailed or not to go in certain sections. So I think it's really important to be giving examples. And then mistake number 4, and this is the biggest, trusting the output implicitly. So a lot of the times I see marketers just taking what AI is giving them and using that. So they're not editing the language, they're not editing the recommendations, they're just handing this off to clients. And that is a huge no. So if you've been doing any of that or done that, and you've either maybe not been happy with the output from AI or your clients haven't been happy, I'm going to walk you through exactly what to do instead so you get great output when you're using AI with strategy. So number 1, before I prompt it with anything, I'm setting up a project. I have used ChatGPT and Claude. I actually really like them both for strategy development, but I'll walk you through what I would input into a project as I'm building out strategy. So I always like to throw in the transcript from my discovery and sales calls. I put in the entire lengthy onboarding questionnaire that is filled out with all of the client's answers. And I make sure that any back and forth comments and follow-up questions that I've had with the client are also included in there. And then I include anything that they have given me that I think would be useful. So KPI reporting documents, any audience research or tone of voice pieces, or anything around their offers, their audience, etc. Whole bunch of stuff that I'm pulling in from the discovery phase. So they're getting all of that in the setup. And then I'm also providing it with really robust project instructions. And I actually have one that I've used and that I use all the time now that I initially developed with AI. I told it that I wanted to have it help me create project instructions that I could use. And I told it the purpose and what I wanted and made sure I was using that instead of just creating them myself. So that's step 1. Step 2 is I brain dump in all of my strategy notes. So I use Whisperflow, which I love. I can just hold a key down on my keyboard and talk at the AI like I am talking right now, and it will transcribe everything error-free. And I always explain at the start of this, hey, I'm going to give you a messy brain dump. This is in no particular order and this is not complete. And I will brain dump absolutely everything that is top of mind for me. So it's going to be things like, I want to look at this, or this one thing I think is really important, or I think that they need XYZ in their strategy, or I want to make sure we audit and elevate this one portion of their offer funnel. And I'm not asking AI to come up with anything. I'm telling it, here is all the things in my head that I'm thinking from a strategic lens. And I want it to help me organize my thoughts. Number 3, I also show it the format that I want. So I make sure that when I'm setting up my project, I'm putting in past strategy examples. And when I'm asking it for things, I will often refer to either certain sections or certain screenshots or things if I want something particular. And that really, really helps because if I have a structured format or an example of, what I think has been excellent in the past, it knows like where my bar is at. And I find that the output is just so much better that way. And if you don't have anything, what you can do is pull in something that you've seen elsewhere. Maybe you have an example strategy from something, or if you're inside Fractional CMO school, you have tons of my old examples. And another thing I will do sometimes is pull in even a totally different discipline style of work and say, hey, this is what I like about this example. Obviously, the context and content within the frame of this strategy is going to be really different, but here's why I like this. And then it can get a sense of what caliber of output am I looking for. Without this step, I find that you get something that feels very AI. And often when it doesn't have examples, the writing will also be very AI and excitable and a weird tone of voice. I often say to AI, nobody would write that way. Why are you writing so weirdly? And I find, again, when I give it examples, there's a lot less of that happens because it knows the tone that I'm going for. Okay, step 4, I build section by section. So when I'm building out a strategy, I will never get it to do the entire thing in one go because I find the output is all over the place. It will forget things, it will hallucinate, it will miss important nuance. And I like to make sure that we're going section by section. And I find the biggest thing that helps in this too is that I will have some idea of what I want to do within a section of a strategy. Let's say I'm building out a analysis of their offer suite. I will have an idea of what I think is working, not working, and some of my recommendations. And when I do my strategies this way with AI, it allows me to build it way faster. So in the past, I'd be writing out all of this, like typing out my full analysis of that section, my recommendations, all of that. Sometimes even doing some diagrams of, an offer ladder, how things might flow together. With AI, what I can do is I can pull in everything that's relevant from the project context, tell it what to reference, and then I will brain dump all of my thoughts. And then I find the part that used to take me so long was writing something really well that conveys my thinking in a professional format. So instead of me having to do that, spend the time making it sound great, the AI piece is doing that because it's pulling from my past examples. So it's my tone of voice from ones I've written in the past, but it's also my thought leadership and strategy because it's my ideas. I'm saying, here's what I think isn't working. Here's what I think is working. Here are my recommendations. And it's just making it sound great and flow. Then the last step here is super important, probably arguably the most important. I have it do a final pass each time as I'm building out a section. So I will get the output, let's say from that offer section, and I will go through and read it top to bottom. And I'm looking for 2 things. Number 1 is I want to go through and just make sure that nothing sounds AI. Usually it doesn't because it's got a lot of my great examples, but I just give it a read over and make sure. And then number 2 is that I will prompt it and ask it to help poke holes in my strategy. Hey, what am I not seeing here? Are there any other ideas that could accomplish XYZ goal that I'm not thinking about? And I find maybe 10 to 20% of the time, it comes back with something really awesome that I will layer into my strategy. But the important piece here is not to take it at face value because there are so many times where it will come back and maybe disagree with some of the recommendations I have or tell me about these 3 things that I really have to include. But that's where the discernment and your experience as a marketing leader really comes in because I often find I will disagree with the recommendations. So this becomes a little bit of take what I like and leave the rest. So I want to be clear, I am never using AI to help come up with what do I do. It's more about how am I communicating what I think the client should do. What's the best way to communicate this? And being a thought partner, having it help poke holes in my strategy and help me see things that maybe I'm not seeing or that I have maybe forgotten. Especially when you're building out a big strategy, sometimes it's easy to forget things or not think about something that you maybe want to look at. One thing I will caution you on though is that You don't want to throw absolutely everything into the strategy. We always want to be making sure we're calibrating to the size of the client so that they're not getting a strategy that is way too overwhelming or way too complex or way too big for the size of the team that they have or where their company is at. That is super, super important. And it's something that can happen really easily with AI because you can be getting all these ideas and that's great. Yeah, let's do that. But really grounding in, okay, what can this team reasonably do themselves? And what do I think as the experienced marketing leader, what do I think is the most impactful and needle moving in terms of initiatives and things that they can do? Okay, this was super high level. I go way more in depth inside Fractional CMO School. So if you are a marketer or a fractional CMO who has been spinning your wheels on your packages or trying to figure out how to do this role well, or maybe you want to transition into this space, check out Fractional CMO School. I share behind the scenes on absolutely everything in my business, how I build out client strategies, how I find and sell and package myself under various different scopes for fractional CMO work. You get my templates, you get literally everything and one-on-one support as you grow your own business. So if you're interested, the link is below or my DMs are always open if you have questions. If you like this episode, I have another video where I break down my $20,000 strategy process. I go in a lot more detail there, so check it out and I will see you next week.